Oh, but you hear that? You hear the faint echo out there. There's scandal. We've got gambling scandal. Now, it's not a college baseball show, but I think a lot of you are aware of the college baseball scandal that has rocked the sport. I don't know if it's rocked the sport. It was a big deal, though. So Alabama's head baseball coach got fired after a very brief investigation into a lot of impropriety that was set off by a gambling monitor realizing some very, very strange bets were being placed on Alabama baseball, led to that investigation, which led to his firing. So that's been in the news. Everyone, I think, is aware of that to some degree. That's about as far down that road as I'm going to go, because I want to now talk to you about college football, because I think the first question on everyone's mind is, I wonder what he did. But then the second question, because there's a lot of curiosity about this whole thing, about sports being fixed, about games being rigged, is, I wonder if that goes on in college football. Now, I don't know if I've talked about this on air. It's not the kind of segment we would just up and do spontaneously, but now we have a reason for it. Let me give you my take on this. In the most well-orchestrated sports gambling legalization rollout that could have ever been executed, this would have happened. 110% chance this was going to happen somewhere. It might as well be college baseball instead of like a playoff game or something like that in college football, but it was always going to happen. Where did this stuff all come from all of a sudden? If you don't bet, and we don't flood our show with it, but if you don't bet, you may be asking yourself, hey, why in the world am I all of a sudden seeing sports betting legalized everywhere? How come everyone's all of a sudden doing this? Well, it's because of the 2018 overhaul or overturn of the federal ban on sports betting. I mean, that's pretty much the way of it. And then 33 states so far have legalized it. We'll probably be looking at north of 40 over the next 2 years. Shockingly, my home state of Georgia has dragged their feet on this. And I say shockingly because Georgia has long been known for two things: peaches, pecans, three things, and people driving across the Chattahoochee River to buy lottery tickets. But for some reason, we don't have sports betting there, and Tennessee does. I digress. How will college football react to this? It was always going to happen somewhere. Is it a crisis? No, it is not. It's probably a good thing, actually, but it's something I'll explain to you in a second. How will college football react to this? In many ways, college football already has reacted. You just don't know it. I think a lot more has come to light about the preventative practices that college football takes right now. Because I want you to visualize this for a second. I want you to visualize Clemson plays Florida State, week 4 this year. And the outcome is what it is. And then the following Tuesday, we've got massive wall-to-wall breaking news that there were betting irregularities, and the outcome of the game may have been, shall I say, impacted in a nefarious manner. You're talking about overnight destroying the integrity of your sport. People understand how serious this is, okay? People who run the show, for all their faults, in some cases, they full well understand the seriousness of this. Preventative measures were taken long before you opened your newspaper or clicked on a website or pulled up Twitter and saw, Alabama's baseball coach got fired. It's just that now light is being shed on it a little bit. So the partnership, for example, with U.S. Integrity, which is a betting monitor that is paid to run data analytics and spot irregularities in this stuff, I've seen them in the news a lot this week. Chris Vanini over at The Athletic did a full feature where he had a lot of people on record as talking about what they do. And all these people do is they monitor betting patterns. And especially when it's on something as low profile as college baseball, they're going to notice immediately. Like, I'm stunned people are dumb enough to do that. Stunned, but they are. So even in college football, they know that you rarely ever hear about it. I've heard about 2 or 3 instances. One of them was an NBA game a few years ago. Like, I got wind of it. It's not something I'm going to talk about publicly because I don't cover the NBA. These people are experts at spotting this stuff. And then what they do is they will alert the state where the bets are being placed, and they'll alert the corresponding league. The SEC, for example, or the NBA, they will all have contracts with U.S. Integrity, and that's the way that works, and 99 times out of 100, it's going to be handled behind closed doors. People sometimes go to federal prison, and it's never front page news. Why? Because lobbyists make sure that stuff stays off the front page for good reason. because even the slightest whiff of a headline of someone going to federal prison because of what they may have done on a Celtics game or on a Florida State Seminoles football game would be disastrous. So they have taken preventative measures. The fact that this thing got picked up so quickly is evidence the system works. The fact that you hardly ever hear about it, and even when I'm telling you they keep it off the radar, I'm saying that's rare. The fact that it's rare is a good thing. It's a very good thing. But here's what was always coming our way. Two things were always coming our way. Number one, a high-profile incident like this was always coming our way because it's impossible for you to infuse sports betting into the mainstream and to have everyone operate with a halo over their head. So it was always going to happen. Regulators knew this, conference officials knew this, league officials knew this, and so what they all knew is we don't know where, we don't know when, but we do know that it will happen. When it happens, and it just so happens it was the Alabama baseball coach, we've got to make a glaring example out of that person. And that's why him losing his job up there is probably the least of his worries, because an example does have to be made. You got to have a scalp. You got to have something to point to and say, don't turn into him. And that's going to be the Alabama baseball coach in all likelihood. The second thing that I have long suspected, and I think will result from this, is college football trying to stay out front of everything will include them forcing leagues and forcing teams to publicize injury reports. The NFL's done this for a long time. I think college football will end up doing this because really what we're talking about at the heart of this Alabama baseball scandal is a guy giving someone a heads up that his starting pitcher was going to be scratched before the public knew about it. Well, that is the sports betting equivalent of insider trading. It's a big no-no. It's more than just a wrist slap. I can assure you of that. Well, college football opens itself up to this voluntarily because leagues do not mandate that teams make injury reports public. The NFL's done it for a long time. Why? To stay out ahead of something like this. And so there's this little cottage industry right now of people being team insiders and having the inside word on whether the left guard practiced this week because practices are closed to the public. Hey, if you're entering into billion-dollar media rights deals and you're entering into deals with sports books, if you are in bed with the very entities with which your fans place wagers on your games, you're going to have to suck it up. You're going to have to change those rules. Or else you just make yourself totally vulnerable to this sort of thing, and it's preventable. Part of that is preventable. But there's this other world that I want to address for a second. You see it all the time. Anytime something happens in a game that you didn't expect, anytime something happens in a game that's not in total accordance with the way it was supposed to go, you can pull this thing up. You don't have an eye, Josh, because they're not available to the public. But you may have an iPhone. You pull up your iPhone, you pull up your social feeds, or maybe just your texts to buddies. And what are people saying? I told you it was rigged. I told you it was fixed. What's your proof? Well, I don't agree with what just happened. I can't believe what just happened. I do want to let you know something. I will go immunity ahead of time. I'll go as deep as I can on this. I don't think people have the slightest clue how you fix sporting events. 99% of people who talk about fixing sporting events do not have the slightest clue how you do it. It takes an elite level of idiocy to fix a sporting event by changing the outcome in terms of win-loss of the sporting event. Only a complete moron would do that. In today's derivative-based betting world, and all that means is you can bet on a ton of stuff inside the game. You can bet on parts of the game, like the over-under in the second quarter, for example. You can bet on that stuff. You can bet on the tight end having over-under 3.5 catches. If you could wager on that and minus 110 returns the same thing it returns, whether you bet an over tight end prop or you bet Notre Dame -3 to win the game, it returns what it returns. It doesn't matter how high a profile the thing you're wagering on is. You're just looking for a return, right? Well, it stands to reason if you wanted to fix something, if you wanted to go fix a basketball game, you don't tell the point guard to throw the game. You just tell him, I'm taking the first half under, dude. Could you milk the shot clock an average of 3.5 seconds deeper per possession? And that'll give me, instead of a 52% probability of winning, it'll give me a 68% probability of winning. That's all I need from you. This is how you fix games. Okay, so anyone out there who looks at this Alabama baseball thing, or if you look at any other thing that seems a little suspicious and said, I knew that entire league was fixed. I knew that game was fixed. No, you didn't, because no, it wasn't. Because that's not how people who have the slightest clue what they're doing actually go about fixing things, or if you even want to call it fixing, maybe just slightly affecting things. Maybe a little light cheating there. Not wholesale cheating, just a little light cheating. So this whole Alabama baseball thing, it's bad in the moment. It'll be good overall, and it is evidence that the system works. So for those of you who are worried about college football and the future of it, college football's future may have 99 problems, but I don't think game fixing is one of them.